And we are live.
We're live.
Yep.
Welcome back to the weekly poll, guys. Like we said earlier, Rob and myself are going to be here this evening with Stephan Franck, the writer and creator of the book Silver.
Hey guys.
For those of you guys wondering what this book is, it's the continuation of the Bram Stoker universe. So imagine Bram Stoker's Dracula universe is still going on today, and what happens if a thief happens to come across a lot of the artifacts and gets involved in this world? Well, you need to read the book to find out. But Rob and I have the honor of speaking with him today and just to go over a few things. Now, if you guys watched over on my channel, you've already seen some of the questions, but we're going to ask the same ones because Rob's viewers are different. So,
So you want me to start, or what do you? I guess the first question I have
well,
is
actually, before you do that, Rob, I was going to say, do you want to show the book real quick,
Yeah,
Stephan?
that's a good idea. Here we go.
Yeah, show the book and kind of give your synopsis of it, what you like to
Yeah.
tell people.
So it's what you said. We just correct one thing. Is like it actually takes place. It's a continuation of the Bram Stoker Dracula universe, but it takes place 40 years later. So we're in the pulp noir era of the 1930s. And so yeah, so this group of con men endeavors to steal precious silver from vampires, which is may or may not be a survivable idea. So we'll see.
so. I guess my first question I have is like, what got you into that idea? Like, what got you into the idea of like vampires and the whole noir element?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all saw things when we were kids that kind of, marked our imagination. And one of the things that really inspired me was there was a late night movie show in France, like where I grew up, every Friday night was like, at midnight. They would, oh well, that's nice.
Oh man,
As you can
That's how
see,
you know it's live.
let me just
that's fine.
So how are you doing this evening, Rob?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
No,
Did you just unhook the phone?
that was quick, right? So yeah, so we had those black and white movies, that they were showing, and they were like the old 1920s, not 20s, but 30s, 40s, black and white movies. So you had monster movies, Universal monsters, stuff like that. The Todd Browning. You had masterpieces like the Fritz Lang and movies and stuff like that, and also the B movies, the Nick Carter, all that stuff. So all that sort of world in black and white of monsters and gangsters and all that stuff kind of became like this one corner of my imagination, and I like to think of it as a world that was a little bit more innocent and which had more mystery to it. It was like pre-Google Maps. You know what I mean? There's dark corners of the world that you could still get lost in and find amazing things and stuff. So that's kind of and it was you had lost cities, lost empires, supernatural, all that stuff kind of meshed together. So that was kind of like the imaginary world that I wanted to connect with Silver, and what I love about gangsters, con men versus vampires, is that when you think of it, con men and vampires are fairly similar, because they're predatory in nature. They can lurk on the outskirts of society. They're creatures of the night. They kind of so they prey on you and stuff like that. And also, there's nothing, they're like either figuratively or literally soulless. Like they don't engage in life and what it is to be alive productively. Con men don't have families and stuff like that. They don't have those relationships. So they're dead inside in a way. So between the dead inside and the living dead, there's like a connection there. So we have this guy who's this con man, and who's living his life in a way that, as he really runs into the real living dead, he's gonna be led to questioning the meaning of being alive and kind of like that feeling. What is it that makes you feel like you're living your life?
Yeah. See, to me, that's a really cool concept because, like, more often than not, when you watch like these Dracula films, with the exception of maybe like Nosferatu, which was really more of a, hey, here's just a really creepy looking Dracula.
Yeah.
But like when you watch a lot of those Dracula films, it's usually some kind of romance thing. Like when you go back and watch like Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Yeah.
with Gary Oldman, it's basically just like a romance
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and I think it's cool like when you take the romantic element away, and it's not really Dracula like pursuing a woman so much as it is like people are trying to dupe him. And in a lot of ways, Dracula's the same way. Like he really kind of leads women into vulnerable situations and then like feeds on them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And and it's interesting because that's also why I have this motif of silver, because people have been asking me why silver and what's that mean and stuff in this universe. And of course, silver is the thing that can kill vampires,
Hmm.
but it's also the thing that burns them, and in a way makes them feel, how mortality is. That's why people smoke, people sky jump, and what kills you sort of makes you feel alive, a little bit. And so I think in my story the vampires are living dead. They're not like the romantic sort of like they are the living dead, and so they're empty inside, and they're trying to recapture, or some of them completely embrace the darkness and the emptiness and the nihilistic sort of approach to their unlife, if you will. And not to give away volume two before we but we'll see that Dracula himself is like between those two worlds, because he's had Mina Harker and stuff like that. So he's the one vampire that could go either way, is still flirting with this idea of maybe there's this light left in him, that there may be a life, there may be meaning, there may be emotions, So and we'll see how he ends up, because he's a tragic figure. So
You can keep going. I'm actually excited to see what's going to happen in Volume 2, so I'm all for seeing where this is going to go.
Just go ahead and spoil it all, man.
Yeah,
Just
spoil
spoil it
it all
all.
for us. It's fine.
um,
So
I was
I
about to
wanted
give
to.
away volume three, and then I kind of stopped myself.
He's gonna go all the way through the whole series.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to mention is for the viewers who aren't aware, but you also were the director, if I got my facts correctly. But you did Iron Giant. You did the.
I was not the director of the Iron Giant. However, I was a supervising animator on the Iron
Okay.
Giant, which means I was supervising a whole group of animators and different sequences in the movie.
Right. There you go. And you also did Despicable Me, and you've done the Smurfs, the actual 3D movie one, right?
Um, no.
Oh, okay. I saw Despicable Me, and I know
Yes.
Iron Giant, but you mentioned Smurfs last
So
time.
yeah, so I did work on Despicable Me. I did story on Despicable
Okay.
Me.
So I had the two that I cared about.
And no, you're right about the Smurfs. But the one that I directed was a TV special called Smurfs: The Legend of Smurfy Hollow, which
Okay.
was really exciting because it had a little bit of CG Smurfs from, they were like the same CG Smurfs that you see in the movie, and then it was a Halloween thing, so they get lost in the woods, and and they start telling this ghost story. And as they tell that ghost story, we go into the story in the story, and that becomes 2D animation. And that was really exciting for me because I used to be a 2D animator, as you mentioned, with the Iron Giant. But also, I felt like the Smurfs, which I grew up with reading those books when I was a kid, never really got their due into the animation, because the TV series was nice and everything, but it was not exactly the golden days of animation,
No, it wasn't.
animation, right? And I felt like they had. So with this, we're able to get like a really great team of 2D animators, Disney guys and stuff. And so we really animate for this, like the first time that you would really see the Smurfs in 2D animation, animated at a feature quality animation, kind of Disney level, and it's really doing justice to the characters, to the themes of who they are, and stuff like that. And I have to say that that's been a really, really fun project to do, and also it's been super well received, and people have been really, really, digging it. I get a great nomination for it for best director, blah blah blah. And but and it was really fun to revisit to the animation and to really do the Smurfs justice that way.
What? And the question I was actually getting at with the projects you had worked on is, coming from that, what made you decide to go from Iron Giant, Smurfs, Despicable Me to doing comic books, having your own comic book, your own creator, own project, instead of I'm assuming you have enough resources to kind of get into the at least make the bigger guys aware of it, but to make this your own, to make a creator-owned project that is yours and you're putting out there.
Well, comics were my first love. My parents they were retailers. They had a store in France that did books, comics, art supplies, a whole bunch of stuff. So I grew up with. An interesting thing too is that American comics weren't really distributed in France until like the mid '70s. and then so they all came out at once. So when I started reading, like in the late 70s, then everything came out at once. So we you had the Golden Age comics, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age was in full swing. So on the same newsstand, on the same rack, you had like the Kirby stuff from I got it there behind me. I could show you the French edition of like the Galactus, so you had that being coming out at the same time as you had like Gwen Stacy, and it's like it was all coming out together. So you had this sort of like, like those theories where there's no time and every moment exists in the multiverse. It was
Yeah.
like that of comics.
That would be that'd actually be pretty awesome. Just like walking. I mean, you see that kind of stuff at Comic Con, but to like as
Yeah,
a kid to walk in and they're like, "Hey guys, we have comics," and to see like basically like you're catching up on 40 years worth of comics,
yes,
in like in a
exactly,
single store in one day would be
exactly.
awesome. But so here's my question. So I always imagined that when it came to like doing animations, and all that kind of stuff, of course that would be something that would tie in directly into comics. But with the idea of like working on animations, the idea of actually like making movies and things like that, I always thought that when it came to animators, that it was more or less like a big party as a movie was being made. You guys are like ordering pizza and drawing stuff up, and like, I mean, do you guys have like the
What do you
boards with
do?
the? Oh, really?
No, no. It's well, no. Animation is it's very rewarding because when you see your scene come alive on the screen, your drawings, come to life, and there's something really magical about it. And in fact, that's how I got into animation, which is that as a kid, I was saying, I was drawing comics, and I quickly realized that hey, you can make them move and stuff like that. And then I saw the movie Heavy Metal,
Yeah,
and
I've
I
seen
was
heavy
like,
metal.
That's a great
holy
movie.
shit, this
Yeah.
is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, right? And because it was the perfect combination. But the thing is, that's not what the animation industry really does, And so, going back to what you were saying, animation is kind of it's a life project really, and that's why only now am I coming back into comics, because for the longest time, animation kind of takes everything over. Because when you think of it, when you're an animator, you're an actor with a pencil, so you need to because people don't go see movies to see drawings; they want to see fully realized characters. So you need to develop your acting sense and your acting chops so that you can actually act the scene, right? But at the same time, you have to be able to draw it without having any drawing limitations, because you don't want to be trying to like make an acting choice and oh shit, I don't know how to draw that, so I can't do that. You can't have that limitation, right? And it's drawing, but it's also your understanding of motion analysis, because nothing pulls you out of a scene quicker than like a weird movement, like a walk that's funny or something so you have all those layers. I mean, especially I think now it's broken down a little bit. It's different in CG with CG animation. But in when I worked as an animator in 2D animation, there was so many layers, so many walls you had to climb before you could get to actually expressing yourself with the art form. That it was a lot of work, a lot of long hours, a lot of tears of blood, and it very rewarding in the end, but really tough commitment.
So I mean, like you said, I'm sure it is. It's unbelievable. Like when you sit down and you watch a movie, and you say like my work went into the creation of this movie. But when you're making a comic, like when you were sitting down, you were making Silver.
Yeah,
Like looking at a silver screen and watching a movie play out, like that's one side of the coin. Like
yeah.
obviously you have like the voice actors on the other side that are bringing the drawings to life and making the characters like something people can relate to. But with Silver, like you have absolute total control.
Yeah.
So, like, how does that compare to like being an animator and actually like drawing, characters that show up in movies and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the creative process indeed is completely, I mean, couldn't be more different. I mean, when you make a movie, you're basically, spending a lot of other people's money, So you can imagine, I mean, obviously everybody knows how much, micromanagement and, how much, and I don't even mean this in a negative way, it's just mean that there's so much at stake that every move is you know, so it involves so in terms of the creative environment, you have to take into account a lot of different people and their needs, which are, the reason why this movie is getting made. So you have to respect that. And then also because of the way those movies are made, you're working with hundreds, if not thousands of people. So there's it's like when I'm directing a movie, it's like my day is one giant meeting. You know what I mean? Where I basically meet with one artist, when anybody, from the actors to anybody, from person to person, just kind of constantly repitching the vision and how it applies to this particular moment and stuff like that. So that's really completely an external thing, and whereas when you're drawing the book, it's completely internal. You don't need to explain. It's just like you don't even need to talk to anybody. You just do it, and so I guess that's where I would really, and of course, yes, you have the autonomy of, hey, it's my own money, it's my own project, I can do whatever I want, and that's great. But it's really that difference when one side of the coin, it's just me trying to explain to other people what I'd like them to do and let them surprise me with great stuff. And when I'm doing the comics, I don't even need to talk to anybody. It's just me doing it. So from those two, yeah, completely different life, as a life experience thing. I mean, it's just like as you're living it, it could not be more of a different zone that you're in.
Yeah, I would think it would be. I mean, I think it'd be kind of surreal at first, because like when you're an animator, like the company comes to you and says like, animate this movie, like make this character react this way. I mean, I don't know what comes first. If it's like the animation, well, I imagine it's the animation and the person voices the animation, but like you're basically like more or less being told what to do. Like you're being told like make this character this way, make him act this way. Like this is how he's supposed to be. So with like the Iron Giant. I mean, you're talking about a character that like the giant himself, which if I recall correctly, doesn't really speak, and so like everything he says is communicated through his actions, and so it's 100% animation to communicate the character.
Yeah.
But when you sit down and you have this comic book, like the entire story is created by you. The animation, like the design, is created. Like the entire concept for this comic book. So rather than being in a circumstance where you say like I'm just doing half of this, like you say like I'm doing the whole 9 yards. Like I've got the whole thing. So the person that sits down and read this comic like has to know exactly what this comic is about, where it's going, and what the purpose of it is, and like it's all in your hands.
That's right. That's right. And and the thing is, it's a lot of time too. So it's like sometimes it feels like, and especially like now that the book's coming out, and I've already sold like a whole lot of them at convention, so I already had the reaction, so I know that it connects and it makes sense and stuff. But like when I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna do this, and you do this long enough, that you start to feel like you're Jack Nicholson in The Shining. You know what I mean? Where it's like in basement, and you're like, okay, am I actually doing something that makes sense here, or am I just some crazy person in my office? Just like, you know what I mean? And so, and really so you have those, but you have to sort of have the faith to just like just believe in your own gut. Stick with your guns. Basically.
Mm-hmm.
I run into the same problem with half the stuff I make. I'm going through it, and the whole time I'm creating this stuff for YouTube, I'm sitting there like, this isn't going to make any sense. No one's going to understand what I'm doing. It makes sense to me, but no one's going to get it. Yeah. And then you get to the ending, and you're like, oh, hey, it worked.
Exactly.
So in the book, Silver, we have two main characters. We have Finnegan, and we have Sledge.
Yeah.
Now, Finnegan's more of your kind of jokey thief, but he takes everything in a serious kind of manner at one time, and Sledge is more... She's like hardened by everything that's going on. She's the girl with the katana. She's the one that makes the majority of the awesome kills. So were they based on anyone? Do you know a girl who's hardened and has a katana and a jokey thief guy? Are they like two of your friends?
Well, there's this thing that...
Wow. He actually owns a katana.
Has that slain any vampires?
It's made of wood too, so it's pretty good to kill. Short of silver, this is the best. Your best trick right there.
Jab it straight in his heart, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know that she's based literally on somebody that I know. I think there's like for me, when I whenever I write something, it always kind of borrows to some of the things that are going on, in my life. You know what I mean? Like if there's kids involved, it's some of the relates somehow to the experience of uh, 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 you know. Uh, um, where my kids are, what stage they're at, and what's going on with them and stuff. For Finn, I think that there's a theme that I'm very fond of personally, and so I'm very interested myself in the just for my life story. Fathers. The theme of fathers can always is important to me,
Right.
and I think that a lot of stories, most stories, if not all stories, when you think of them, really are about your forefathers, uh, literally or at a societal level, whichever which level, but one way or the other, your forefathers have achieved greatness and or you know done horrible things. And the question for you as the new hero is, how do you either live up to the live up to the greatness or live down the sins? You know what I mean? And I think that's from Luke Skywalker to like Star Trek, like the new Star Trek, hey Kirk, your dad was only captain for 8 minutes, but in 8 minutes he was the greatest captain we've ever seen. Now live up to that. You know what I mean? So and I think there's the thing we'll find with Finn as we get deeper into the character, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's somehow it's the same with her, is that those are people who somehow the chain of knowing how to be an adult, how to be a person, how to live your life and engage with somehow something happened and that transmission has been broken, and they're people who uh, uh, therefore don't engage with other people. She finds it easier to take care of the living dead, and he finds it easier to always have an angle, not really come at you straight, but there's always an angle. It's a different, it's a so what you see as those characters' greatest strength, as often with people or in real life or literature, is also the symptom of their brokenness. you know. So for him, and again, I don't want to spoil it no more, but that's basically what those two people are. They're broken people who have not learned somehow the transmission of what it is to be like a person, somehow got broken, didn't get passed on, something happened, and now that, in story, you always have the why now moment. And they're all coming to a point where, they're going to try to do this thing, and I won't spoil what it is, but there's this job that they're trying to pull. But also, they're all coming to a point in their lives where, they've burned whichever bridges were left to burn. And now it's just like it's also coming out different than the way you came in, because that road kind of leads nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to ask one of the we have two questions, the really good questions that came across from viewers right now.
Great.
So I'm going to ask those real quick. But Crazy Comics would like to know if there are any comics that were your favorite and any comics that you would wish you had made, that you wish were yours.
Yeah. So going back to when I was a kid, really, Kirby. I mean, there was different in American comics, especially. There was Jack Kirby was just like, I mean, what 8 or 9-year-old hasn't had their mind just blown by the insanity of the power and the mythic. And in fact, I'm really trying, because what I'm doing with this story, right, is that it's got the original Bram Stoker Dracula thing at the core, and I'm extending it in every possible direction, right? And so including in the past, adding some mythology to it. So we go actually back to the Bronze Age, right? And so when I'm doing those things, I'm thinking Kirby. And what I try to do in those moments is like the last thing I want to do is try to open a Kirby book, because if I did, then it would totally overwhelm me. And, so I'm just trying to connect with the memory of, how I remember it from when I was a kid, or like how, like, whatever page made me feel. And I'm trying to kind of channel that and kind of recapture that. And then when I do my pitch, then when I'm done, I go check out the pitch in question. Oh, it's completely different. But it's okay. It's just like the spirit of it. I try to kind of reconnect to. So Kirby is one. My other huge influence was Will Eisner. You know, after I saw Heavy Metal as a kid, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make my own animated movie. I came home and basically the following 4 years, I made this short film of the Spirit. Which all shown in Super 8. But with animation, yeah, cells. I mean, it's basically an animated film, right? And so yeah, there's a lot of Will Eisner, at least in aspiration in what I do.
Okay. And the other question was from, I lost the person who asked it here. Lewis Andrews wants to know, and we are on the Marvel Explained channel, so it's kind of a warranted question, but he wants to know what your favorite Marvel artist of all time was. And that's actually going to lead to my question about the artwork that's in silver.
All right, so I already mentioned Kirby.
Yeah.
And that, of course, was, but there's two more that I have to mention. One is Gene Colan, whose art looked dangerous to me when I was a kid.
Really?
It's for grown-ups. It's it was scary, right? So I loved it, but also John Romita Senior.
Yeah.
Just because he did, the Spider-Man, run, like the whole Gwen Stacy, all that stuff. I was just at the right age to. And again, I don't think it came out in France a few years later than it did in the States, so it was not new for you guys back then, but it was new for me, and it came out and it's just like, I always say, I had two, because, it's really interesting when you talk about superheroes, right? It's like, when I think of superheroes, I like to think of them from like the time where they meant the most in my life, where stuff happened and it was not super easy for me. And at some point when I was like 10 years old, superhero 8, 9, 10, superheroes meant everything to me. And so I had basically two fantasies. One was that it was at night I'm falling asleep, right? There's this knock on my window, and there's like either Superman or Batman, and they're like, "Hey kid, the Joker, he got me real bad. Can I come in?" And and so yeah, man, come in, and then of course, I've read the next issue, so hey, look out for this or that because this is where the thing is, and then it would come to my school the next day for show and tell, and this is my friend Batman, So I had like the father figure superheroes that were really like more like the DC characters for me, but the Marvel stuff was more like, I'd be like at the school cafeteria, kind of like daydreaming and bored out of my mind, and I had this dream that, like some terrorist would attack the school, leaving me no choice but to reveal to everybody that in fact I was Spider-Man. You know what I mean? And so
yeah, man.
Marvel was more that. It was like, as DC was more like the father figures that I could sort of like look up to, and like the angst and the Johnny Storm, Peter Parker, all that stuff. That's the stuff that was speaking to me most directly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it
Teenage
makes perfect
angst
sense.
spoke to you most directly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was thinking about this because you said France got it later than the U.S. and
Yeah.
it must have been fine back then because like if that happened nowadays, everything would have been spoiled by the internet and Twitter.
Yeah.
Like years in advance.
Yeah, that comic would have been out for a day, and it just would have been
You would have
spoiled.
been known everything, but now it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Back then it's like you didn't know about the Gwen Stacy death, and they didn't bring that over with it.
Yeah.
No, it was, and it's interesting because France had this, as in many European countries, they don't put out like the single floppies. So what they do is they have those trades that are not full quality trades, so they're still like the quality of floppies, but they're trades, and they track 3 or 4 or 5 titles. So you would get the Marvel book, and every month you'd have a Daredevil, an X-Men, a Spider-Man, an Iron Man, and stuff like that.
That'd be much cheaper for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
It must be
definitely.
much cheaper.
Yeah, it was cheaper, and it was interesting.
So Rob, did you have another question?
No, I mean, I was just, it's. I think that when people start reading comics, I think they latch on to the comics they first started with. But I think for more people, it's more of like a generational thing. Like for me, comic books in the 90s is where it was at. Like
Yeah.
comic book characters in the 1990s, the
Yeah.
X Factor, X-Men, stuff like that, Fantastic Four. That was like, to me, that'll always be the best era of comic books for me, because like that was when I was first introduced to it, and I was just so captivated by the
Exactly.
idea of comic books. Like when I was able to first really go out, buy them, read them, things like that, is when I was just so captivated by them. And it seems to be the same way for you. When you were a kid, like, do you have these
Yeah, and
experiences that just latched you onto comic books?
it's interesting because like sometimes I'm in a movie theater and I'm watching a movie, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, and then I have to tell myself, yeah, but how would have how would you have felt, when you were 12 or 13 or 15,
Hmm.
and they're like, oh my God, this blew my mind, what, and just like, so I think you have to face the fact as you get older that nothing's gonna hit you as strong, when you're 30, than something's gonna hit you when you're 12. It's just the fact of life,
Yeah,
It's a sad fact of life.
it is.
But
It is.
as we're going on to the kind of length that we decided to set aside for this, I did want to ask a final question, which is what I was asking Rob
Yeah.
if he had anything. But going back through your book here, the Silver Book, towards the back of the trade, you actually have a few different variant art styles from
Yeah.
a couple other people. And the big question I wanted to ask is, what made you decide to settle on the one that you went with? Because it's kind of like, I like it. It's like a minimalistic, but at the same, it's almost like a two-tone kind of art style, which
Yeah.
really actually shows quite a bit that happens in the panel. But seeing the variants in the back, it's like, well, it could have looked like this. It could have looked like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to finalize in the one that you decided to go with?
Yeah, the style that for me, because I was trying, as I was saying before, I was trying to connect with the the black and white movies, and I was talking about Will Eisner, and I was thinking, like if you look at the artist edition, if you bear with me just a second, of like this is like the book that changed my life. I'll show you right now. Right, the French edition of the Spirit. I don't know if you can see, but it's a big format. It's like if it was in a newspaper.
Yeah,
And you look at the,
That looks really cool.
it does.
I don't know how much you can see on Skype, but there's this kind of noir thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the feel that I wanted to recapture. So when you think of movies like from the 1933 King Kong, or or to the Will Eisner pages, and that feeling of like the adventure stuff, like the Milton Caniff and stuff like that. That's really what kind of drove my visual inspiration for how to draw the book.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I really like the direction you went with it. It looks it's. I've never seen anything really in that manner. I mean, I've read quite a few various indie books, and everyone tries to get their own style. But that's when I was able to tell what was going on. I felt, because the problem I have with a lot of indie books is too much is going on in a panel. They're trying to give their own unique style, and they go too much in that direction, and I just get lost as to what's going on. I can't follow it anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's that's a very good point, and that's where it's my, I guess, my cinematic background, because I worked on, I don't know, 25 movies, something like that. So the way I'm laying out this book is the same way I'm boarding a sequence for a movie. So it's like it's clarity and everything, and so hopefully out of clarity comes impact, and impact gives you also emotional impact. But it's like, to me, I'm using the same rules that I use when I putting together a movie sequence, that I when putting together a comic page. And the thing, because I don't also give people the impression that it's an old-fashioned book. No, it's like it's not a throwback. It's completely modern, and that's what I like about that style. It's like in a postmodern kind of way. You can there's an innocence to it, but it's like, yes, it is that stuff, but with like a very cinematic, as I was saying, approach, and
Yeah.
and also a sense of stylization that is a little bit modern. I mean, I have to say, a lot of people say, "Oh, your stuff reminds me of Mignola," and stuff, which I take as a huge compliment, because I think is an amazing artist. But I've always been attracted to like like the Mignola, the Shaken, the Kirby in a way also. People who don't just draw well, but it's that combination of a drawing that has chops, with a certain sense of stylization and abstract, you know. So it's old and new. It's traditional in many ways, and but very modern and radical in other ways.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now that we've kind of come to the close of the time length we really wanted to put towards this, could you hold up your book for a second there, Stephan? So if you guys are wondering what book we've been... Well, hold on a second. How that's going on. That's that. Okay, well, there it is. I was just going to wait for it, because we can hear it quite well. I don't want to get over that.
Oh, okay.
He just hung it up. Oh, okay, stop calling me. Okay, guys. If you're interested in the book we've been talking about, the continuation of the Bram Stoker universe in a 1940s noir, I did have that wrong in the opening when I said it was modern day. It is a really great book. We did have the honor of reading it early, and it comes out November 12th, if I have my date correct this time, because I know I had it wrong.
Correct. So that is next Wednesday. And
yes.
For anybody who's in the LA area, we're going to do a release signing party at Meltdown Comics on Sunset Boulevard, Wednesday the 12th at 7 p.m. So.
It's too bad that we won't be there, because I would love to go to LA for that. But yeah, if you guys are interested, just go to your local comic book store, and just like with many indie books, they may not be ordering this ahead of time, so you need to personally request this. Hey, I really want to read the Silver book. Could you get it on order for me? Get it on my list. Get it on my weekly pull. So, is there anything else you want to add before we close out on this, Stephan?
No, it was a pleasure chatting with you guys. Yeah, I mean, so I'll just say people can go to Dark Planet Comics, which is the publishing company, which is my publishing company that I started with Silver, and there's a lot more that we're about to do, so it's going to be, so keep that name in mind, Dark Planet Comics.
I'm going to be giving the link to that to Rob.
There you go. Yeah.
Down below.
Yeah, and I saw you were also linking to. There's a really fun trailer for the book on YouTube, which I think you can get to just from the link you were using the other day. You know, it's a really fun video. It gives you a good sense of the. It'll get you pumped up to read the book, I think.
Yeah, guys, and also be aware that Stephan's Twitter account is in the description, so you guys can follow him on Twitter for updates on Silver and any other projects that he has going on. But with that being said, I do want to say thank you, Stephan, for coming out and talking with us. And
Hey, it was a real honor to speak to you. I mean, like I said earlier, the Iron Giant really is just something I used to watch with my dad, and it's something I remembered well. And reading the book was a great. Like when you guys sent that over to me, I really do appreciate that. It was a really good read.
Oh, great! Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna go ahead and call it a night, and yeah, we'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, we'll see you next Thursday with the regular show, and maybe we'll have some more people we're chatting with.
Yep. Peace.